So today we're going to look at Law Secrets Revealed, which is some of the things that we have found in our dive through the court system. Some of the interesting things that we've found, some of the things that you can do with litigation analytics and big data. Basically, Premonition is the world's largest litigation database. We are bigger than every other litigation database on the planet combined. So we're bigger than LexisNexis, Westlaw, and Bloomberg combined in the size of our coverage. And the other thing we do, which other people don't, is we basically look at the win rates of employees and attorneys that are hired by people in the court system, so we can take a look and see how they go compared to other attorneys for different case types and different judges. This has been fairly popular. We have been in the news many times over the last 2 years. We've had over 100 articles and many different TV appearances as well. So what we're going to do here is take a look and to see what's happened, what clients can know about their lawyers, interesting things we've found in the court system, and how you can use this information and make it useful for you. Basically here, what's changed has been the arrival of big data. There are 41,000 cases filed every day in America, about 45,000 globally, and this is our crawl speed. So instead of manually going to courthouses and getting information and scanning it and making some notes and uploading it, which is traditionally how it's been done, we've had web crawlers go out and they basically visit every online courthouse every hour. So this is our one of our hourly crawl speeds here, so it's 47,000 cases in an hour. Obviously, we go back and check on cases, and we also go historically. You see that there are some days we are hitting over 1 million cases in a day. So this is very substantial. And here's how it compares with the others. When people talk about court data, usually they're talking about this, which is federal or PACER system data, or the appeals system, but appeals cases are less than 1% of all cases. Most of it is at a state and county level, so this is 97% of cases, and if you're not getting this, you're missing 97% of your litigation. Every one of these is a different court. There are 3,124 of them. So in Florida, for example, you have 67 counties, 65 of them are online, and they're not connected. So if you do something naughty in Miami, they don't know about it in Orlando. Some places like New York have a unified court system, so you can search from one county to the other, but you can't search a Connecticut county from New York. And no states are interconnected. So it is a real mess. And what Premonition does is it downloads, consolidates, normalizes, and then analyzes all this data. And we're essentially the only people to do that at scale. Premonition has more coverage than LexisNexis, Westlaw, and Bloomberg combined. Plus, we also have a significant amount of international coverage, which makes us the world's largest litigation database. So what can clients know about lawyers nowadays? Well, the answer is quite a bit. This is the UK Court of Appeals. It's arguably one of the finest courts in the world, the highest level of advocacy. And this is the most hired barrister there. He has 41 appearances and a 60% win rate. He's not a bad barrister, but he is not the best. The best is this guy up here, who has 7 straight wins. The crazy thing, though, is when Mr. Popular isn't available, the major law firms like to hire these three monkeys down here who all have win rates in the 20s. And because of this, law firm selection of barristers is actually 38% worse than random. So the better a barrister does in this court, actually the less likely they are to hire him again. And conversely, the more he loses, the more likely he is to be rehired. In that country, the main reason that a barrister will not be rehired is failing to get on with instructing counsel. So basically, that devolves into essentially a hire your mate system over the years, and there is a negative correlation between winning and rehires. Of course, when you can see from a big data view the court as a whole, it's very easy to compare counsel and know exactly who the best people are to hire, rather than relying on things like directory listings, which will talk about things like barristers' steely gravitas and having just the right amount of grey hair. We can look at case durations. Insurance companies, for example, are infamous for beating their defense counsel up on hourly rates, and then defense counsel will often make it straight back again by running their clocks. And with this, you can see exactly how many cases a lawyer has and how fast they're going. These are all divorce cases. You can file a divorce and get it done in a day, and there are attorneys that do that, and there are many that do that quickly and efficiently and often, but then there are those that do not. And some, like this outlier here, he drags all of his cases over 1,000 days. Of course, his clients are unaware of that, and so are the regulators, but if there was a sign outside his office that said, my average case duration is 1,012 days, people simply wouldn't hire him. So transparency can do a lot of good things for a market. Let's take a look at what we can do with a particular attorney. We like to look at this guy because he is the second busiest attorney in Miami. He's had over 1,500 cases in 3 years. He's quite fast, and he's getting a judgment 41% of the time. He only does plaintiff work. He only does foreclosures for the banks. So it's the same types of facts and law over and over and over and over again. So if justice is truly blind, we should be seeing a plaintiff outcome, a judgment 41% of the time for every judge. So let's take a look. You see here Judge Trarick, 48%. That's pretty close to that 41 average. Let's take a look at the next judge down. Judge Bloom clearly loves him, 63%. Let's keep looking. Judge Ige, not so much, 23%. So you should not see a 40% spread between judges for exactly the same case types in the same court from the same attorney, similar facts and law over and over and over again. There should not be a 40% spread between judges. But there is, because judges are human and they all think in different ways about different advocates and have different types of relationships with them. And we found that this relationship is actually worth 30.7% of the average case outcome. So it's very significant. If you have a portfolio of 50-50 cases and then you start using data to pick your counsel, now you will have the portfolio of cases that are 80-20 in your favor. We can also see the client list, so who his clients are, how many cases they give him, how many are open, how fast they're going, and what kind of result they're getting. There's an interesting side thing here that we noticed. This attorney was winning 85% of the cases for Beneficial of Florida, yet for another bank he was only winning 16%, and we could never figure this out. Until one day an attorney in our office pointed out that the beneficial cases were very, very easy cases because they had a solid chain of title, they had all their documentation, the client was responsive, they were no-lose cases. Whereas the ones for the other bank, it was a very weak chain of title, they had lost most of the documentation, the client was unresponsive, and the guy said, I'm surprised that 16% of them were able to win, and those are probably default judgments. We actually later found out that this information is predictive of future stock price. So we can look at companies and tell where they are likely to move in 4 to 24 months' time compared to their competitors just by looking at their litigation. A lot of people choose their legal representation based on law firm brand name, which is somewhat of a CYA thing for general counsel. These are the 20 largest law firms in Florida and their performance in the Miami court. Now, many of these have no bar because they just simply don't have a Miami office. The top firm is a firm called Quinteros, has an insurance defense specialist firm, has a 93.51% win rate. It's extremely impressive. These are 3 major national firms. They have win rates in the 30s. So most of these are not in Miami, and we've redacted a couple of names because we're not keen on getting sued. But one of these firms actually has no bar because their win rate is actually 0. They had 4 cases in the 3-year period that we looked. Only 2 of them had finished, and they had lost them both. And this is a firm that is reputed to be absolutely the best in the market by a very long margin. So you don't always get what you think you're going to get just by picking by brand name. And again, we've also found that the win rates for certain case types can vary within a firm from office to office. So some offices are much better than others, which is probably because of this. This is the busiest law firm in Miami, and we can see the internal performance of their litigators. So they have this guy here who's very busy and who skews their average positively just by himself. You have some lawyers that always win, and you have some that always lose, and a cluster that nearly always lose. Which litigator you're assigned is practically random. So if you do have particular panel firms that you like to stick with, it is a good idea to specify which lawyers will be working on your cases. I want Jane to work on my case, or I'm going to go to a different firm, because it has a massive impact from 100 all the way down to 0. Here we can actually look at a law firm. We can see every litigator in the firm, and we can see a breakdown of their cases. For example, this firm does significantly better on the defense side at 71% than they do on the plaintiff side at 42. This firm's also quite fast. Many of the major law firms right now are touting their prowess in drone law, despite the fact that they have usually never done a drone case, but it's very hard for clients to figure that out. But now you know exactly what types of cases they're doing because you can see a very detailed breakdown. For example, this firm here is a very heavy real estate specialist firm. So you might want to think that could be a good area to hire them in, and others not so much. Here we can see the case durations for each case type, and we can see their firm, we can see the court average, and we can see the firm we're comparing them against, which is the second largest firm in Miami. And you'll see that these vary from case type to case type. So for some case types, you're best off hiring one firm, some you're best off hiring another, others you might want to hire neither and go to the market overall. We can look to see types of cases they're doing, how many, how fast they're moving, and the overall outcome. So, for example, you would not want to hire this firm for auto negligence because they lose all their auto negligence cases. We can also see how well they do in front of individual judges. So for Judge Trarick, we saw they're only getting a 33% win rate, yet there are other judges where they have very long, unbroken 100% track records. This can also be filtered in real time by case type, by judge, that kind of thing. We can see who their clients are, how many cases, how long they go for, what the outcomes are, and we can plot the performance of each of their attorneys by the numbers of cases they have and how many cases they win or lose, and we can compare that with one firm, with another, with the market overall. This is one of my favorites. This is the judge report. So we can look into the mind of a judge and see exactly how they think. This is Judge Ike in Miami for auto negligence cases. And these are all the attorneys that appear in front of him for that. These are the lawyers that appear in his court in general. So you see there's been over 10,000 cases, and he's seen over 3,500 lawyers. These are very large numbers. And we see the lawyer that appears the most in front of him actually nearly always loses. Yet this is the lawyer statistically you're most likely to hire. Whereas here we see a lawyer that has 18 straight wins. Going down to auto negligence, we see again the lawyer that is most hired has 16 straight losses, whereas there's an attorney here, this is Mario Alexander Gomez, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, and he has 7 straight wins. Now, interestingly in this court, plaintiffs are only getting judgments 5% of the time, unless they hire this man here, Troy Latane, who has 7 judgments. In fact, a quarter of the judgments for this case type in this court go to just one man. This is important to know because if you are up against Troy Latane in litigation, for this case type and this judge, you need to settle because it's likely you're going to lose. And the sooner you know that, the better, less expensive it is for you and your clients. Are there some lawyers that rarely lose before some judges? Absolutely. Every judge has his pets. Here there's an attorney called Alvin Benton who had 32 straight wins before Judge Schreiber in Orlando, which is statistically highly unlikely. There's an old courthouse saying that a good lawyer knows the law, but a great one knows the judge. And this saying is true, at least it is 30.7% positively correlated. And another old saying that facts and law have just lost too many times. The relationships are a very significant component of law. Whether or not that is fair is a different question, but it is fact, and it's something that you need to take into consideration when you're picking counsel and deciding what to do in a particular case. Big law versus small law. Obviously, most major companies like to see that a large firm is representing them, both for themselves and as kind of CYA in case things go wrong. But do large firms actually outperform small firms? And the answer is yes, actually they do. They, on general, will have a 6.98% advantage if a big law firm goes against a small one. The big law firm is 6.8% more likely to win. Of course, usually they are about 50% more expensive, but there is that advantage there in general. But looking at big law in general, these are the judges in Miami, and they're usually their top 20 performers. But some judges don't even have a top 20 because there's only a handful of people that have a decent enough amount of appearances that are 50% plus win rate. Where the lines are in yellow, it's an attorney from a big law firm. So here we see some judges will have a couple of big law attorneys that appear in front of them, but about a third of the judges have none. So it doesn't matter which law firm you went to, you are never going to get someone with a win who's frequently in front of this judge with a win rate above 60%. So you cannot get a performance advantage just by going to major law firms for all judges. You need to really pick by lawyer. A lot of people are very interested in seeing some stats for them and their firms, and we are, of course, more than happy to do that. If you contact us afterwards, we can do that privately for you rather than showing all your stats to everybody. Associates versus partners has always interested me. I always thought that a partner obviously must be more than an associate. So must win more than an associate because they are more senior people and they've been promoted and they have longer careers and so on and so forth. So the question there is, does a partner actually win more than an associate? And the answer is yes, actually, partners do win more than associates. Partners win 1.4% more than associates. So yes, you are getting better performance, but in general, it's costing you about 50% more. We've had a question here asking that 95% of civil cases settle, so how do we define outcomes for that? And how do we define a plaintiff win or a defendant win? That's a very good question, actually. It's probably the first question that people ask. In jurisdictions like the UK, Canada, Australia, India, we only see a case after it's gone to trial. So in those jurisdictions, we would not see a settlement at all. In America, 97% of cases have what we term a pretrial outcome. We try not to use the term settled because it has two completely different meanings. Basically means that there was something that was decided in that case, but it didn't need to go to trial. Most of the time when things are going to trial, it's one party is absolutely intransigent and demands their day in court, or the facts and law are so close that both sides decide that they want to roll the dice on it. But 97% of the time, something is happening before the need to go to trial. And that something is typically a judgment or a dismissal. Obviously, if you call both lawyers on a particular case and say, did you win? Both of them will argue till the cows come home that they won and the other side lost, which obviously cannot be true. We had a former Chief Justice help us with the system and said, look, basically, you might not want to think in terms of win, think in terms of outcome. What outcome do you want? So if you're a company that's being sued, what do you want to see on the disposition box at the end of the trial? Do you want to, at the end of the case, do you want to see judgment for plaintiff? Clearly not. Do you want to see transferred? Probably not. Suggestion of bankruptcy? Definitely not. Settled? Probably not. What you really want to see is dismissed. So if you're looking for a dismissal, it makes sense to pick from the counsel that usually get a dismissal, that case type, and that judge. Now, obviously, many settlements are written up as dismissals, but that's where you basically use this to pick a short list of people that usually get the kind of outcome that you're looking for. And conversely, on the other side, we call judgments as wins on the plaintiff side. So If you're uncomfortable with win rates, then think in terms of outcome. And obviously, we deal with 41,000 cases a day, so it has to be very black and white. It's just a strict win-loss, and we don't get into good wins or bad losses. Do you get what you pay for in law? If you pay more for a lawyer, do you get a better result? So are the lawyers in the glass skyscrapers better than the lawyers in the strip malls? The answer, in general, is yes. If you pay more for a lawyer, you get a better result. If you pay 100% more for a lawyer, you get a 3% better result. Whether 3% is worth paying 100% more for is, of course, up to you. But there is a correlation, but it is extremely weak. There are massive opportunities in law for what we term to be perception-reality arbitrage. There are large sections of the litigation population that are significantly overpaid for what they do, and there are some performers that are significantly underpaid and are actually excellent. Which brings us on to the next slide, which is men versus women. If average male litigator goes to court against the average female litigator, who's likely to win? Or is it like most of these things that we've examined, and we found that many of these things actually don't have huge differences? We have found that actually this is the biggest difference of anything we have ever looked at. Women litigators absolutely wipe the floor with male litigators. More women than men go to law school. But in terms of being a litigator, only a third of associate litigators are women. My personal theory is there's like a glass ceiling where they're just discouraged from entering that, with the exception of family law. But female associates are already 3% better than male associates. Now, when you get to partner, most women don't make partner. Only 20% of partners are female. Most of them are not litigators. Only 4.88% of litigating partners are female. But they are 12% better than the men. It's a huge advantage. There have been other studies which have found that they get the cases done faster, they bill less hours, and are actually significantly cheaper than their male colleagues. So women in law are significantly undervalued and overperform the market. And when you take the female partners out of the 1.4% stat, and you just compare male partners to associates, the difference drops to just 0.5%. So statistically, they're the same. The bottom line is that just by picking by win rates gets you results that are 50% better and 50% cheaper than just hiring a major law firm and crossing your fingers. So what are some ways that we can use litigation analytics? One of those ways is by finding clients and also by benchmarking them. So for example here, this is a list of top employment law firms in Miami. Sorry, this is not that at all. It's a list of litigants that have employment cases in Miami. And we see here a company called ABG Caulking and Waterproofing Inc., which I'm pretty sure none of us have ever heard of, yet they have nearly as many cases as the University of Miami. They have more than the county, they have more than Burger King, they have more than the diocese. They are potentially a great client. They also lost each one of their cases. So if you're an employment lawyer, this is a great client to pursue. And when you have that, we can do what we term a client report. So this is great for law firms looking for clients, and it's also great for companies looking to benchmark themselves. We can see all the lawyers that this entity has ever hired, and this is the state of Florida government. We see the number of cases they have. Most of them are as plaintiffs. They're getting a judgment 41% of the time, but they're only getting a quarter of their defense cases dismissed. They are going quite quickly, though, for them. And the typical law firm pitch is, we're a great law firm, we have amazing offices, one of our partners won an important case once upon a time, we'll take you golfing, give us all of your legal work. And that's a very tough pitch because everybody else is saying exactly the same thing. Whereas if you go to them and you say, look, your eminent domain cases and your negligence cases are going very well for you. So whoever you've hired for that is an excellent choice of counsel and you should keep them. However, when you're getting down to your contract cases, you have a lot of them and you're only winning 13%. That's obviously a source of pain for you. And if we could prove to you we had better people, would you try us just for that one bit? That's a far easier sale to a client than give us all of your legal work. We can also go down and look at this on an individual attorney basis. So you see they have some attorneys that are doing quite well, but Jason is losing 2 out of 3 times he goes to court. And Damaris has a 16% win rate and it looks like running the clock, and yet keeps getting given more and more and more cases. So maybe not a bad idea to swap this particular attorney out. We also have ways that you can triage a bunch of cases very, very quickly and spot where there is likely to be pain in advance. Imagine going to the dentist and dentists sell fillings and the dentist will say, would you like a filling? And you say, well, no thank you, because that's aggravation and money. But when the dentist shows you an x-ray and you see that there is indeed a looming future problem, all of a sudden the filling makes a lot of sense. That's what we can do with this open case report. And it breaks it down very simply. With a red dot, you have a problem with the judge, with the opposing counsel, or you've hired someone very unsuitable for your case. With the green dot, there are no problems with judge and opposing counsel, and your choice of attorney is good. See here, they have hired someone with 7 straight wins for this judge, which is an excellent choice of attorney. We can also do this on a claims level. This is a sample mock-up we've done for an insurance company. So when the insurance company comes in, just by looking at the case type and the venue, it can rank it to say whether this is a claim that could potentially go badly. So for example, an auto negligence claim for Cook County, Illinois, that's a very plaintiff-friendly court. That would be a big red light because you really want to be paying that claim early, maybe even pay a bit more so that it doesn't go in the court system. Same thing for Delaware, which is much more defendant-friendly, is not something you have to worry about as much, and that might well be a green light. Here we have the ability for insurers to triage this when they get the letters of representation, so they can see who the lawyer is, what his track record is for that court and that case type, and it'll flag the ones that litigate aggressively, take things to trial, often get big verdicts, that kind of thing. Those are the claims that insurers just don't want getting into the courts at all. These are the kind of things that we can do for you, and this is just a very, very quick overview of the kinds of things we've found and the kinds of things that we can do for you. We would love to hear your questions. Please feel free to drop me an email. My email is tu@premonition.ai, and come visit us on the web at premonition.ai. We have lots of great videos and reports you can download. If you found this to be interesting, we have law secrets revealed, booklet, which you can download for free. We have reports on many major courts and who the best people are to hire, and lots more great stuff. Thank you very much for joining us today, and I look forward to chatting to you soon.